Welcome to the next part of the saga of the 457G to 460G conversion. So, what you're looking at here, I have saved you a lot of boring wrenching and whatnot. But as simple as this looks here, this represents a lot of progress. So, what I have here is the old head that was previously on this unit here. I've swapped out this plate here because, well, for one, these things just screw off. They're just a pipe connection on the bottom. So they just screw off, and this one had this this ring on it, which is for stability and support. Otherwise, all your weight just sits on this one point here. And since the whole point of converting over to this 460G is to put a pot of crawfish on here, I wanted to make sure that I wasn't just relying on just a simple a piece of, I guess that's a 1/2-inch pipe for a connection that holds up quite a bit of pounds, because in that case you'd have, who knows, you might have 20-30 pounds of crawfish in there and probably another 60 pounds of water or more. So it starts to get really heavy to bear on that one point. And with this spreads the load, and so you don't have any problems of breaking anything. And this also has the 460 nameplate, which is great, even though this does say at one point 457 on the side, but since it's had quite a bit of wear, you can't really tell that it ever did. So there you go. So that part's good. So anyway, to do that, one thing that's very interesting is that if you look at the way that these are put together, the smaller head, and the head really is quite a bit smaller. Try to get this in a spot to where you can see the size of the burner head here compared to the 460 burner head, which is significantly more massive. The holes that they use for the 460, they use the outer holes, but that's the holes that the support uses. So what I had to do was pull all that off, and then these weren't quite large enough to pass the rods for the support. So they were supposed to be 1/4 inch, but they were just punched, so they were just a little bit off. So I just had to clearance them with a 1/4 inch drill bit. So now everything fits like it's supposed to, and the support's on here, and we're ready to start reassembly. The other thing too here I wanted to show you, here's the grate from the 460. And then we'll kind of put that over the grate here. You can see the size difference is pretty significant. So at any rate, that is where we're at. We looked at doing electrolysis on these parts last time, so this is how everything is cleaned up. All the rust is gone. They're all cleaned out. And the same thing with this is in good shape. It's just a little bit of surface rust, but once we hit it with some heat, it's all going to go the same color anyway, so that doesn't matter. So where we're at right now is trying to get everything balanced so that it is all pushing down on here properly, and then to get this burner head, and then to get the burner head on, we also have to get the fuel line in here, which I had to take out, obviously. So the fuel line will have to go in here, and then we're going to make sure that we end up with the burner head right where the fuel line's supposed to go. So got a little bit of reassembly here to do to make that happen. So I think what we'll start off with here is getting this fitting back on the bottom of the burner head, so that way we can screw be able to locate where the gas fitting's supposed to be. So get the right size wrench here. That's not it. And again, with these soft brass things, I really like to use the box end on this just to not damage the soft brass. So now the interesting part is, how do we set this on here, and how do we line it up with our fuel line? So I can already kind of tell that we're not lined up where we need to be. This needs to go through here like this. I mean, we're pretty close. It just needs to be rotated back this way a little bit. And So what we'll end up doing is rotating it this way till it lines up. And I think what I'm probably going to do is that I'm going to go ahead and put a few of these screws in here. Now I've got a ton of screws. I just have to remember which ones go where, so at least I got another example here I can kind of take a look at and see what it is that that I'm using. Oh yeah, and I also need to put my my choke plate on the bottom of this, which goes right in here. And I also need to reassemble the top of the burner too while we're at it. So let's kind of do some of that. How about that? Yeah, it's a little bit random here, but we eventually find the way to the end. We're going to reuse our gasket, which came off pretty nicely, and then we'll just set this on here and start the reassembly process. This uses these two big screws. Now, probably what I should have done in the meantime here somewhere is I should have done some cleanup on these two, but of course, as you can see, I did not. So we're just doing some quick wire brush treatment to this, so they'll go on without too much trouble. And we'll just drop these through in here, and it'll start looking like it's supposed to pretty rapidly. I mean, like this scrub screw goes in here to hold the generator in. And let's see, and now I need two big screws and two big washers, of which, or not screws, but nuts. And these washers are completely flattened due to the heat. They are split ring washers, but because of the heat, they do not. The metal has been completely softened, and they don't really function as a lock washer anymore. Get this in here. And of course, like I think I was mentioning before on these, since we're dealing with cast iron parts here, you just don't want to sit there and just reef down on these things like your life depends on it. You want to be careful, because you certainly don't want to crack the cast iron, because it is a brittle material. So you're just trying to get a seal on here like that. I think is probably about as much as I really want to do. I mean, it's not a high pressure seal, right? So that's what that looks like there. Then we take our generator, which actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't have the right gas tip in here. I rebuilt this generator. Boy, I tell you, that was a lot of fun. Lots of heat and quench cycles, and eventually it did come out. And in fact, I think the generator that I've got installed on my other one actually is the one that I should be using. That was the one that was original to it. This is another one that I rebuilt. But nonetheless, the whole generator was completely coked up, and the spring didn't want to come out. And what really solved it was getting in there with a propane torch and really heating it up. I mean, so we were heating this thing up to like to dull red, maybe a little bit more, and kept doing that. And when I knew I was going to start to have success, and this is something for your toolkit later, is that when you start smelling like coal or like crude oil, that kind of really sulfurous kind of stink or tar, that means that you're actually starting to loosen and convert that sticky substance that's inside there that's holding that spring in, and you're converting it into carbon, and eventually doing enough of that between the very hot and dunking in water, it'll eventually break loose. And then I had a rod, which is in fact this rod right here, secured in the vise, and I was just banging against the ends of the spring, and eventually it just broke loose, came out in my hand. And then I went and I've got a bore brush for a .338 caliber rifle, which is the right size to fit in here. Brushed it out, and then it's all as good as new. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually make sure I get the right one here, and I'm going to use the generator. I need my 7/16, which is, that's it. I'm going to take the generator that's on this other head here, because this is one that was actually original to this this one here, and we're going to use this one. And what I'm going to do real quick is that I've got to go get the gas tip, because the difference with these is that the gas tip for the 460 is larger, and that is because it is a larger BTU output. The 457 is a 35,000 BTU burner. The 460 is a 55,000 BTU burner. So it's quite a bit bigger, and so you need to get a gas tip for it. But the cool thing about these generators is that they're completely disassemblable and rebuildable and swappable. So this is nothing more than just something that holds the gas tip in, and the gas tip itself is right here. I'm gonna back off the thing, and this is the gas tip. So that has the calibrated orifice in. So I need to go get the other one. So I will be back in just a second. Okay, magical parts delivery. So let me set this one aside so I don't get things mixed up. This is a gas tip for the 460. Amazingly, old Coleman Parts had them in stock. So I'm like, alrighty then. So this is it, the big one. So we just set that in there. Now I realize that the needle that's in there is going to be undersized, and I looked to see if I could find a replacement needle, and I could not. So that's a little bit of a concern, but we'll see how it goes. But anyway, I did get some other. There's actually new old stock. This is part number 558-238, needle and tube, and this is the needle for the 457, unfortunately. So I have it, so if I find a way to kind of maybe make something, then maybe then I can go ahead and come up with something that works. So anyway, this is the right gizmo for this. So yeah, that's the other thing too, is that when I got this head, it did not have a generator in it. So the generator that I'm using is from a 457G. That was it's kind of a parts one at the moment because it doesn't have a very good fount on it. And so at any rate, I figured, well, if I'm going to have one of these, I would like to have the 460, and if I'm having the 460, then I'm going to convert everything over to this and use the good quality fount with this one. The other one's has been soldered in multiple places. However, I do have a source for a new fount, so we'll have to see how that comes along here in the next few days as I get the may get the replacement parts for it. So now I got to figure out of all of these 1,000,001 screws here, which ones. Oh yeah, that's right. I think I got to make sure that I get my plate on the bottom here. So let's do that. This has got to be in here. And this drain, which I got loose and was completely plugged, will now work again, so that's good. So we'll screw that back in here. This is in case you flood your burner on startup. You can just drain the fuel out that way. So that's good. Yeah, I just kind of wish I may have done a little better job at keeping track of which ones went where, because I got a bunch of different sizes, and yeah, so we'll have to just do a little bit of screw sorting here. Some of the ones are really easy to figure out, like the panhead ones and stuff like that. It holds the grate onto the top, so that's easy enough. Just these other ones that are the round head ones are a little bit more difficult to figure out what their actual use was. But you know, when I see this one that looks rusty, that had to have been on the bottom, so that's where that one's going to go back, is right here. So we're going to do that. And I also derusted this, and I in the electrolytic, and I don't want to have that super tight, just snug, so it can move around. So it's not like a super great thing here as to how it works, because it doesn't exactly fit perfect, but hey, you know what, we'll just kind of, it's back where it's supposed to be, right? So that's good. I'm putting this back together so I can actually see the nameplate, because it was completely obscured before. I'm kind of looking at the clocking on these and how they're put together on these other ones. This looks to be roughly right, so that's probably pretty good. Trying to again sort out a few more of my screws here of appropriate lengths. Yeah, I didn't really think this through very well, did I? It's all right. Well, I think that probably these long ones and stuff went through here to hold on those handles. So these other ones that are relatively short, and there are 4 of those, we're going to go ahead and say that's what these are for here. So we'll see if they reach through the holes and allow us to screw it down, because we need to have this secured before we start cranking on it to get everything in place. So let's see what we got. Okay, so what we're going to do now here is that we're going to try to get these just tightened down. These square nuts are, man, they're a pain, because they don't actually, well, that one seems to be pretty tight, so I guess that's good. They don't actually jam up against the side like you would normally expect them to, so that way they can be kind of self-tightening. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. And I'm going to cheat by shoving a screwdriver in here, so that way when it rotates against it, it'll just lock, and then I can just crank it down. There we go. That's how you cheat properly. That's nice and tight. Yep, so if there's too much clearance, you just got to reduce the clearance. Whoops. Let's try not to mess up the screw. Dang it. Kind of nicked 2 of these already. That's not good. Okay. That's good. That'll be fine. All right. So now we got to figure out how to rotate this around so we get this lined properly, or at least sort of close. So I'm going to kind of finger tighten this down to see where it needs to be, and then we'll just kind of rotate this, because it will spin until it looks to be about where it's supposed to be, and then we'll do this, which looks to be pretty good. Okay, so this is reasonably tight. What I probably want to do is use these as jack screws to press down against the top, so that way this doesn't rotate, because obviously if it rotated we would have big problems with this copper line here. We don't want to damage the copper line, because you can't really get another one. So so there's that. Oh, I think I've messed this up. Oh geez, pushed it in too far. I hope I didn't mess up the end of this. Okay, there we go. That's where it's supposed to be. Yeah, man. Sometimes you think you know what you're doing, and it turns out that you don't. So anyway, so that should be leak tight. That should be leak tight. That's pretty good. And honestly, right now, we're ready to fire. And I think I want to go ahead and do that. I don't have any pressure in the tank, but there is some fuel in it. The only way I can get air pressure here real quick is to kick on the shop air compressor, and that's going to be loud and noisy. So let me shut you guys down for a minute while I do that. Or actually, you know what I may do? I've got a big brass pump. Maybe I'll go get that. We'll go do that. Be right back. Ta-da! Big brass pump. Got this from Old Coleman Parts. This is a reproduction of what was used to actually pressurize these. And it's made by the Amish, and it's a super nice piece of equipment. And what I'm going to do before I do that, though, is that I'm going to make sure we get some fuel in here, because it's thirsty. And the 460 is even thirstier. So I don't want to sit here and try to get it going and then end up not having any fuel in there. So we're going to go ahead and just slug a bunch of fuel in. Most people run these gas plants on unleaded gasoline, and I probably will too, but for right now I'm just using the Coleman fuel. But yeah, it's expensive to run at 55,000 BTU an hour. So anyway, okay, crank that down tight, make sure my valves are closed, open my little thing here, and well, I got to get to here so I can see the gauge and get to pumping. Whew, 10 psi, man. Shop air compressor sounded pretty good right about now. And shop air compressor sounded really good. I'm also at a bad angle here, so a little harder as we get to the higher pressure. And this pump's getting pretty hot. Whew. Well, 20 psi, ain't quite there. Should be at 25 to 30 to start. Boy, here we go. Keep going. 20. Let's see how she does with 20. Okay. All right. Same lighting procedure. Crank that open to the first notch. And then open this and listen for spits. There it goes. First time in I don't know how many years. Try not to melt my lamp up above. Well, we got a lot of fuel leaking out the other side here. Remember that whole thing I was talking about flooding it? Well, this is what you're seeing. A little bit of flooding. Okay. I'm going to kind of let that burn off. And I think part of this is self-inflicted. I probably should open this valve all the way to get proper atomization. Otherwise, we're going to have this problem here. So we're going to wait for that to kind of burn off a little bit. Oof. Grab my torch again, maybe light off some of that, which will also help with the preheating, right? So, yeah, we'll do that. Okay. Open it all the way. It's probably too much for the overhead lighting. Yeah, it's way too much. I gotta move this tent out of the floor. So let me do that. I'm gonna put this down here. Because at least this way, I got a lot more vertical clearance. Move my other stuff out of the way. And try again. So if you don't open it all the way, you have a problem with the needle being in the way of the orifice, and you're not getting good atomization. I may also have the this thing here. Get my air open. Man, how much audio have we missed? Okay, probably a lot. Burning really yellow. I'm guessing that the air needs to be opened up in here. All right, we try turning this down some. Maybe we'll get it to heat up better this way. We're down a lot on pressure, but we're still very yellow. So I'll open this other way. Yeah, we're getting fire out the back here because that's not sealing very well. And it's just getting really flooded. So anyway, this is not working out at all like we'd like it to. I think we need to get maybe a little bit more air in it. Since I'm down here, this is a little easier to pump up. Whew, man, that is a workout. Okay, try this again. Maybe with a little less fuel, just to see how we can get it to catch up this way. There we go. That's looking better. We'll give it a little bit more. I think now we can actually open this up. Okay, that's better. Give it a little bit more. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There we go. So theoretically, this is what I think was happening. Was that I was trying to drive too much fuel before the generator was properly heated. And as a result, it wasn't getting hot enough to vaporize the fuel in the generator, and it was just kept spraying liquid fuel because it kept pushing in more and more cold fuel, which kept it cold and didn't really get it to do what it needed to do. So yeah, this is that's working quite nice. It still looks a little bit yellow, but I've heard that the generators need a little bit of time to catch up when you crank the fuel open, so they might burn a little bit yellow at first, but then they should calm down. It's quite the rumble coming off of this thing. Here, even that is wide open. So that's 55,000 BTU. Alexa, stop. I don't know why she thinks she hears her name, but she does, and she's trying to give me a definition for BTU. So gosh, I pretty happy with that. That looks really good. We'll get a picture here because it doesn't always show up so great. So we'll go ahead and get a shot here and put some stills in for the video so y'all can see it. But yeah, it looks super nice. In fact, what I'm gonna try to do, I'm gonna try to get some more pressure in it, and because I'm a little bit recovered now. So let's see what happens when we get her up to like around 25. Actually, I'm gonna turn this down because it's really cooking my arm. I'm gonna do that for a moment. Okay, that's 25 psi, and then we'll do this and slowly work our way back up again a little bit. There we go. Oh yeah, that is awesome. That is really, really amazing. So, hey, we're not obviously not completely done with this yet, but getting pretty close. Just got to get the get some of these out here. Just got to get some of the rest of the cage and the grate and everything else on there. Looks good. Really not too much anything plugged up there. I see one spot where it's a little bit dark, but other than that, this thing looks great. So we're gonna go ahead and put the rest of it together, but this is the fun part, seeing the whole thing running. So anyway, until next time, keep them lit.